The scientists, of course, are saying that climate change is becoming worse faster than they anticipated, and the impacts are going to be much worse than they also projected before. So in that context, climate finance is very urgent, and this is part of a process to get more of you more deeply involved in the work on climate finance. So there's a generic definition of climate finance, which is any finance that is meant for adaptation and building of resilience of communities and people impacted by climate change, and mitigation, which in simple terms is policies and programs and projects that are designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and make us all shift to more sustainable systems of living. But so in that sense, in the generic sense of climate finance, there are different kinds of climate finance flows, both in terms of sources and nature of the flows. So you have private, multilateral, bilateral, and then there's climate finance within the context of the UNFCCC, the Climate Convention, and then there's domestic allocations for private finance, meaning allocations by southern governments for climate finance. The focus of this short presentation is the climate finance work within the context of the UNFCCC, which basically covers different financial mechanisms, but the main mechanism of climate finance for the Climate Convention is the recently established Green Climate Fund. And this is the work around which many organizations are intensively involved now, and which we are also trying to get more of you to be more involved. The Green Climate Fund is the financial mechanism to ensure resource mobilization and allocation and disbursement of climate finance for all developing countries. Based on the Climate Convention, or consistent with the Climate Convention, climate finance here is meant or is defined as the finance from developed country governments that are for the southern countries. And it's very specific when I say southern countries, because in terms of recipients of this fund, it's not just governments, but it can also, recipients can also be civil society organizations and NGOs. The Green Climate Fund, as I said, was recently established just in 2012 by virtue of a governing instrument policy that was adopted by the UNFCCC. It is different from other international financial institutions in its governance structure. It's 50% of the board is from developed countries and 50% are from developing countries. The GCF board was created by the UNFCCC, a conference of parties, and there is the mandate of the fund is defined by the governing instrument that was adopted by the UNFCCC conference of parties, but the board of the GCF itself now defines the rest. So what it terms as its business model, its structures, operating framework, and all other policies for it to become fully functional fund as per its mandate. There have been 9 board meetings since 2012, and the 10th meeting will be held this July in 2015. So roughly there are 3 meetings a year. These first meetings have been devoted to developing and agreeing on the basic policies with the intent of making it as operational as soon as possible. So as of October 2014, in its meeting in Barbados, it completed the minimum policies needed to start mobilizing resources. Thus, the pledging session happened soon after. And now they're rushing to complete the rest of the minimum policies needed to start approving proposals and disbursing funds by October 2015, this year. Of course, there have been active and intense engagements of movements even before the fund was established in 2012. So we were also active in shaping the governing instrument, the content of the governing instrument. But we really need more organizations to be involved, especially from the South, since most of the groups that are active now are from the North, but also from Europe, because there are many European countries and we need active groups from all European countries. Now most of the active groups are from the UK and from Germany. The governing instrument and the policies thus far adopted are very far from ideal, but we can still say that there is a very big potential for the Green Climate Fund to play a positive role and not be like other international financial institutions. And this is important because climate finance is urgent. We are still fighting big battles and will continue to fight big battles to shape these institutions. So I have a list here of some of the key fights. I'm not going to read them all. I don't know how much time I have left. But there are several key fights that are worth mentioning that is relating to the private sector, to the financial instruments, to the nature of the international intermediaries, because there is risk that the World Bank and other regional development banks may still dominate the Green Climate Fund. The fights over standards and safeguards, ensuring country ownership and direct access. There's a fight to prevent the fund from financing fossil fuel. The resource mobilization is key. We may shape a good fund, but the fund may be very empty because the donors don't want a good fund in terms of how we define it. Currently, the pledges are at 10.2 billion for 3 years, so that's only roughly over 3 billion per year. Of the pledge amount, only 3.9 billion has been signed, so there's a very big difference between pledges and actual commitments or reality. Of the 33 countries that have pledged, 19 are from Europe, and it's also worth noting that 8 are from developing countries, even though developing countries are not expected to give money to the fund. So it's very far from the $100 billion a year pronouncement in Copenhagen here in 2009, and even much further away from the $400 billion a year that is estimated just for adaptation costs alone. So there's also another fight to address loss and damage. So that's the speed dating version of climate finance. I'd like to invite you to join the workshop, the side event at lunchtime, so that we can share more information and we can have a discussion of what we can do as strategies together. Thank you.